Welcome to Transform with TAS, where we take everyday recipes and transform them into something totally different, as well as sit down and interview some of the trendsetters, noteworthy people who are in our communities and across our country. Well, today's episode of Transform with TAS, you're going to be right here with me. I'm going to do something a little different, so you're going to be with me the whole time. I am going to try this item that I canned last summer. It's called Bruschetta. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I felt like canning, and I'd never canned before, so I'm going to try it. But instead of having it on a piece of toast, we're going to add it to some noodles and see what we get. So we're going to see how this turns out. So let me get my hat, and we'll be right back to
Dr. Teresa A. Smith, also known as Dr. Taz, Graves' disease and gastric sleeve surgery protein-focused home cook and talk show host, feeds your physical, mental, and spiritual body. Time to transform with Taz.
Well, I've got my hat. And so I've got a pot already on the stove with some soybean spaghetti noodles. Now, the folks in my family, they just frown every time I try to be healthy. It's not that they don't want to be healthy, but they're like, okay, we want real food. I'm like, it doesn't always have to be real food. So I've already got some spaghetti noodles that are almost done. And they've been sitting here boiling, because I didn't have a sous chef, so I had to start working on this. And so they're basically done. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drain them. And so I'm going to move over to my sink and we're going to drain them. So I'm going to walk over and I'm just going to pour this. You see the steam coming off, so you know it's real. And I'm just going to let it drain here. I used my small colander because I didn't want the big one because I only had a small amount of noodles. Yeah, it's not just what you're eating, it's the amount of what you eat. So I eat small meals, as I've said before, so it doesn't take a lot for me. So I sometimes forget that I have to make sure that I am using a nice amount of food for the camera, if for nothing else. So I'm going to use this lid and I'm going to let my noodles sit here. Okay. So as I stated, I'm using soybean spaghetti that I've already boiled. And as you can see, they're ready. Now, as I stated, I canned bruschetta. Now, bruschetta is just tomatoes, it's minced garlic, it's basil, salt and pepper, and balsamic vinegar. Well, last summer wanted to can. I'd never canned before, and so I chopped up my tomatoes, put all my ingredients together, and I actually canned. Now, this particular one, you have to be careful. You have to make sure that it seals. Well, all of them sealed except for this one. And so I put this jar in the fridge and I've not yet had a chance to taste it. But as you can see, it looks great. It looks like I just diced these tomatoes. And so I think that they're good. I opened this prior to rolling the tape because I wanted to make sure that it would actually open. And it did. And sure enough, it was an easy open. So that said to me, I did right by not putting this in the cabinet with the rest of them because it didn't seal. And the other jars I've made jam. I was really in a canning mood, and my mother never canned. So I really had to teach myself how to can. And so when I opened up my peach jam that I'd made, I had to really kind of pry the lid off because it's sealed. And so therefore I know that this is good because it did not seal, but it's been in the fridge the whole time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of my soy noodles. And so instead of putting the bruschetta on a nice toasted piece of bread, we're going to use my soy noodles instead. Okay. So we're just going to move it around here. Now I do have a twist. I have a little twist that we're going to do. I thought, okay, instead of just having the tomato and, the noodles, we needed to add something else. And so what I'm going to add is some feta cheese for one thing. And since this has been sealed in the refrigerator, not completely sealed, but it's been in this jar, I'm just mixing this so that when I scoop it out, I'll not only have tomatoes, but I'll also have some of the minced garlic and the basil and the balsamic vinegar and salt and pepper. So I'm just going to scoop some out. We're going to put it here. Just going to put a little dab right here in the center. It smells good. It smells fresh. Now, what I've done is I've just got basically a bed of soy spaghetti noodles. And I've put my bruschetta. I'm going to tell you, I do like meat. But I really should be a vegetarian, but I like meat. So I'm going to add some feta cheese. But before I add the feta cheese, I decided that I was going to add some cheese. I'm going to add some mozzarella. And this has mozzarella and prosciutto and a little fresh basil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab my trusty fork. Now this is really an appetizer, but I thought, okay, it's an appetizer, but you're making a little small plate. So you're not putting any other meat, so why not just put a couple of these? Because by adding a couple of these little bites, I'm adding protein, plus I'm adding flavor. Because again, we've got the basil in the center, we've got mozzarella, and we've got bruschetta. And bruschetta is just a fancy way of saying ham, ham. I'm from the South, and we would just say it's ham. Now, of course, this is not country ham, but it's good ham. And it's not Easter ham or Christmas ham, but it's good ham. So what I've got, this just looks so unbalanced. Let me put 2 more, just so it looks cute. Just so it looks cute. Oh, I'm pulling this all apart. We won't put this one because it's not going to make it look cute at all. But I like these. I found these little bites at a box store. And I thought, this is good for me because it gives me protein. It gives me my mozzarella, which is a low-fat, partially skimmed milk cheese. And it also gives me some ham and a little veggie because it's got the basil in the center. So I know it's not really a vegetable. I know, don't write me. I know it's an herb or whatever, but it's something green. And that's the important thing. Okay? So, you see what I've got here? I've got my bruschetta and mozzarella, and we've got my noodles. So now what I want is just a little feta cheese. Now, I really don't want the big pieces of the feta cheese. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get another spoon because we don't want to be double dipping. And I'm going to get some of the little sprinkles, okay? So we're going to just sprinkle. We're going to sprinkle, 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 sprinkle. Sprinkle this on. Okay. Okay. Just toss a little bit more. Now, I'm ready for the taste test. I'm ready for the taste test. I'm afraid because I don't know what it's going to taste like because we're doing this all live and I haven't tasted this. And I know people are like, you didn't taste it? No, I didn't. I did my canning. It's the same way with my peach jam that I made. I canned it. I didn't taste any. And someone says, you need to taste while you're cooking. Well, yeah. But this was different. It was the art of canning. So I really wasn't thinking so much about what it was going to taste like. I just wanted to make sure I was canning correctly. This is quite good. And my soybean noodles are good also. I hadn't tried this yet either. They're not too soft. They're still a little al dente. The tomato has a little, the acid is still there. And I'm wondering, did I not put a sprig of sweetener in it? I'm not sure because I'm getting the acid from the tomato. I'm tasting all the herbs, which are really good. I had to put a little sweetener. Oh no. The sweetness is coming from the balsamic vinegar. That's where I'm getting the sweetness from. And it's excellent because it's not really sweet, but it's just a hint of sweetness. Now what I want to do is try a bite with, see, I told you it was a veggie, but I'm just messing with you. It's just the basil. I want to try a bite. And people talk about that perfect bite. So that means in order for me to get the perfect bite, I have to have some mozzarella. I'm going to need a little bit of the basil. And I got to have a little bit of my noodles. And my bruschetta. Let's see if I got a perfect, oh, and I got to have the feta cheese. Oh, now I've got a big bite coming. I think this is a perfect bite. Oops, I don't have a tomato. Let's grab a tomato. Mmm. Mmm. This is good. Because now I've got the creaminess of the mozzarella cheese and I've got that saltiness from the bruschetta. You can tell I'm just getting right happy with this. And of course the basil, and by it being wrapped, I'm getting that fresh pop of basil. This is really good. This is really good. And let me tell you, I was going to make something else for you guys. I'm just too honest. I was going to make something else and it just did not come out the way I wanted it to. So I'm like, now what else can I make that I have on hand? And I started looking through my pantry and I saw noodles. And then I thought, and I'm going to be honest, I looked at the box and I saw the noodles and I saw the tomatoes. And I thought, oh, I can now use my bruschetta. And so this is how this whole dish came about. And then I was like, oh, I could put some feta cheese because I knew I had feta. And then when I pulled the feta out, I realized I still had the little hors d'oeuvres, Party On America. I still had the hors d'oeuvres and I thought, oh, you have a whole Italian dinner just waiting for you to bring it all together. And it is wonderful. So I guess what I want to say to you today, this is a healthy dish, but you always have something in your kitchen that is going to feed you physically that's going to be good for you. And we also have those things that's not so good for us that's in our kitchen, but you've got something. So it doesn't mean that you've got to always have everything planned out. It doesn't mean that it's got to be super, super healthy. But by pulling many different pieces together, you can create a wonderful dish. Did I transform this? Yes. It could have been just regular spaghetti. It could have been different cheeses that were higher in fat. I could have had a different meat, but I didn't. So again, here we have soybean spaghetti. We've got my bruschetta that I canned myself, so I'm so proud of myself. And we've got bruschetta, and we've got mozzarella and basil. And this has been a wonderful, wonderful, surprising, oh, I forgot my feta cheese, wonderful, surprising meal that I just put together. So you can do it also. Now, we've got a great interview coming up, and we will be back in just a moment. Well, welcome today. Today I have in my kitchen with me Pastor Joanne Daniels. She is the senior pastor of Divine Grace Worship Center in Durham, North Carolina. She's an unusual woman, and I think that you're going to find out a lot about yourself. And I hope that the nuggets that she imparts to you will find a resting place where you have been looking for an answer. I think that she may have your answer today. Pastor Joanne, welcome to my show. It's Talk with TAS in the kitchen. So welcome to my kitchen. Uh, I know you, and let me just say this, guy. She's divified all the time. She's a little understated today, but if you go to her social media, you're gonna see that she's always divified. And I'm just so happy to be able to call you my friend. First of all, you are a woman of God who, once I met you, I felt a connection, and you've not changed since I've met you. And to me, that's high cotton, because we are always changing, but you've not lost the essence of who you were when I met you. And I just want to say up front, thank you for being brave. Thank you for being vulnerable, because you don't know what I'm going to ask you. But thank you for coming today and spending a little time in my kitchen. I said that you were from Durham, North Carolina, and you're the senior pastor of Divine Grace Worship Center. Yeah. What I want to do is kind of go back in time a little bit and talk with us about how you came to ministry.
First of all, thank you and for inviting me to be a part of your kitchen talk. And I'm so honored to be called your friend and for you to be a part of my life. You are an outstanding young woman that I've just come to love and to just admire all the things, your bravery and all the things that you've endeavored, and your tenacity to push forward. I just admire that. I preached my initial sermon in December 12th of 1982, back during a time when it wasn't popular for women to be ministers in a Baptist church. And it wasn't an easy road, because, like I said, I was a lead key person in my home church ministry, and it wasn't popular for women to be talking about preaching. However, I felt compelled and almost pushed and forced to preach after going through a childhood of experiencing dreams and just imagining myself preaching and pretending to preach to the trees and outside in the yard, and preaching to my friends. We played church and I was a preacher and all that stuff, and not really understanding what was happening back in that time. As I said, there was no not popular for women ministers. So I didn't have anyone to mentor me or to help me to understand what I was going through. I was going to different pastors and trying to, so I was having these dreams. I could see myself in big arenas, standing before a lot of people preaching. And the thing about that is I'm not an out front person. A lot of people think, oh, she just loves the camera, she loves to be out front. But I'm a very take the back seat. I like to work in the background. I like to see things happen and make it happen from the background. So I'm not an out front person at all. But I saw myself always in standing before audiences, speaking and I guess preaching. And later in the years, I began to have more and more dreams. I was troubled in my spirit, and I finally came to realize God is calling me to preach. It just got in my spirit. God is calling. I just knew it. I can't explain it. And I always tell people, if you just know, it's something you can't explain. The calling of God. You just know that you've been called. It's the experience that you go through. My experience. So I really, when I accepted the call, it was strange. I was at my job. I worked at Duke University. And I'd been there for several years, and I was sitting at the computer. Back in those days, a computer, filled up half a room. So I was sitting at this giant computer, and I type all day long, and I'm sitting there typing, and I had my headphones in, listening to music, and all of a sudden, the music that I was listening to, it kind of faded out of my ear, and that song faded out, and Shirley Caesar's song, "Go." It's an old song, "Go." I think it said "Go." It came in my ear, and the song just began that song started playing, and I heard the voice of God say "Go" through that song. And I snatched the earphones down. I'm like, what happened? And that song continued to play over and over. And from that, I just knew that God was calling me to preach. And I brought this to my pastor. And, he tried to discourage you. So just pray about it. Maybe A little while later, if you still feel this way, we'll talk about it. And so he kept putting me off and saying, just trying to discourage me from that because that wasn't popular. And the more I was discouraged from it, the more intense the push to go forward became, and to the point that I finally had to go to my pastor and said, look, this is something I got to do. It's almost like I got to do it or die. And if you're not going to be willing to open up the doors here, let me do it here, then I'm going to have to go and find somewhere somebody will let me preach my initial sermon. I've got to preach. It's like I was giving birth to a baby that was ready to be born, and it had to be born. And so finally he agreed with, not, total agreement with me, but he decided to, let me go forth. And again, I said, I preached my initial sermon on December the 12th, 1982. I was almost full term carrying my baby, my son, Jamie, which was another big, controversy. How are you going to preach? You're full pregnant. I said, I don't know, but this is what God is saying. Great word of prophecy came forth to me on that day that I preached concerning this child that I was carrying, that I wasn't just carrying a child, but I was carrying a man-child full of the word that was anointed from my womb to carry the word, and that he would go speak to masses of people, and he would be a great influence to his generation. And truly, I saw that come to pass in my son, Jamie. Every word that was spoken came to pass. And so that's how I got here. It wasn't by choice. I said it was by no other choice. I didn't have another choice. God didn't give me that choice. It was like, you do it or you die. I tell everybody, I didn't go willingly. I didn't go willingly.
So you didn't go willingly, Pastor Joanne?
No.
But when I listen to your story, there's so many nuggets that jump out at me. I've had other people say to me, I've been teaching since I was a little girl. They would arrange their animals, their stuffed animals, their toys, and they would be teaching. But, I think you're the first person that said to me, I have been speaking, I've been preaching since I was a little girl. Mm-hmm. And that's so significant because lots of times we know what the calling is on our life, but we're not able to maybe bring it forth the way we think that we should. And, even with your work as a pastor, we're in a different time than when you were trying to preach your initial sermon. You were talking to the Baptist minister that you were under. We're in a different space now. And so even being, whether you're a teacher or you're a minister or pastor, all of that's done so totally different now.
Absolutely.
And I think that, that's sometimes the struggle with how do you do that? But also you were a strong Black woman. You were able to advocate for yourself. You didn't stop. And that's a nugget that I want folks to get from your story. You were persistent.
Yeah. Okay.
You kept knocking on the door, and eventually the door opened, but you kept knocking. Absolutely. And I think that's an important message. But at the same time, I want to swing us back to, you were basically 9 months pregnant.
Yes.
Now, when you first started knocking on the door with your pastor, were you already pregnant at that point?
Probably not, because this process took about 2 or 3 years to get to actually preaching my initial sermon. So no, I was not pregnant at that time, and wasn't even really thinking about having a child at that time, because I had remarried. And so my children at that time, my older children, they were like probably 7 and 8 or something like that. So the idea of having another child was not even on the radar.
Okay. And because what I find fascinating is that you're telling me it was 2 to 3 years you had that burning, mm-hmm. and that urgency, and you have been talking to your pastor, and he was kind of putting you out because, again, it wasn't very popular for women to preach in Baptist churches, and particularly at that time. Mm-hmm. But you kept being persistent. But as you were continuing to knock, a seed was being implanted.
Absolutely.
A seed was being implanted. You still knocking on a door.
Right.
That it seems like you can't get the door open.
Mhm.
And was it one of my favorite scripture? Seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open for you.
Mhm.
So you were seeking. If you think about it, you were seeking for 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Then the urgency got so in you, as you said, it was you had no other choice. It's either you told me it's either you're gonna do this or you're gonna die. It's like it becomes all consuming, almost like a fire, and you
Absolutely.
just it's just you just
Absolutely.
you're just like this all the time.
Yeah.
I just gotta do it.
Absolutely. That's
Do it.
exactly where I was.
And then you're pregnant though. We fast forward.
Mhm.
Pregnant.
Mhm.
And then you hear the song Shirley Caesar Go. Now you listen to some other stuff, and then all of a sudden that comes in the headphone go, and then you
Mhm.
hear a voice say go, and
Right.
then it's like you keep hearing that song.
Mhm.
And so you're back again advocating for yourself. And then the pastor's like, okay, it's almost like he just threw up his hands.
Absolutely.
But then you're almost full term.
Mhm.
And for those who are spiritual people, you hear us talking about birthing something,
Mhm.
you know. And to me, it was like you birthed two things at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
You birthed your ministry,
Mhm.
but then you birthed your child
Yes.
several weeks later.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at the dates.
Mm.
December 12th, 1982. And I think you told me it was December the 21st.
It was actually the 27th. I have another son born on the December 21st, and I always get their birthdays mixed
Right.
up. But Jamie was
But
born December 27th. Mhm.
so 15 days later,
Mhm.
15 days later,
Yes.
you birthed Jamie.
Mhm.
So now, my first question is, how does it feel to think about it through my lens that I'm using to realize that God birthed two, I'm going to say two ministries at the same time. What would become your ministry,
Mhm.
and then the ministry that Jamie had
Yes.
while he was with us. How does, when you think about it from that perspective, what does that feel like? What do you think?
It was mind blowing. It was amazing to me that, first of all, that God would choose me to carry ministry. And then on the day that I brought forth ministry, He let me know that I was also carrying someone to carry ministry. So, that always, I guess I felt a little bit like Mary felt when the angel came to her and told her, you're carrying this special child, and it was just, it was always amazing. And that, especially as I watched him grow and I watched the prophecy come to pass in his life and watched him be exactly what God had called him, said before he was even born. So it was mind blowing to me. And I felt like Mary. I'm the least of women. You chose me for, first of all, to be someone carry your word, and I'm not even, and then I'm carrying someone that's birthing a ministry within the ministry, like you said. So it was really amazing to me.
I heard someone say recently that, and you basically echoed it. When prophecy is given, it's prophecy for the future.
Uh-huh.
It's not for right that moment. And because I've had people provide prophecy for me, and you sometimes think, oh, it's going to happen right then. It's
Uh-huh.
not happening that moment. It's happening later. And you told me, you say he's going to be an unusual child. He's going to impact the world. And you told me he was he was unique from the very beginning.
Mhm.
The range of emotions we feel when someone that we care so much about is no longer with us. How do you manage those range of emotions that go from high to low, that change on a dime? How do you manage that?
I'm learning to just take it as it comes. I say a lot of times to my people as I'm trying to teach them how to just manage the times that we're living in. We have to just wake up that morning and decide how is my day going today? Am I going to be depressed? Am I going to be down? Am I going to be sad? Am I going to be um, all those negative feelings, or am I going to choose to make this a good day? And so I have to take it a day at a time, a moment by moment. As you say, I wake up some mornings, and there are mornings I wake up and I'm feeling down. I'm feeling all of those things, and I say, I just say to myself, Lord, I need today. A couple, just a minute. I need a minute to just feel those things. I can manage. And it's only, I have to put this preface. This it's only through God, only through my faith that I'm still here. That I still have my mind, my right mind. I'm still in my right mind, because to experience a tragedy as I experienced with what I call my promise and my child. He was more than just my son. He was, everything. He was just so many things to me. It has only been my faith and my faith and trust in God that I've been able to handle this. And as I say, I take it day by day. And you go through, like I said, this roller coaster. Today I'm at the top, and I'm like, okay, I got this. I got it together now. I'm doing okay. And then the next morning I wake up and the whole world is crashed on me. And so I just have to take it as it comes, and deal with those emotions, because I think I have learned to allow myself time to grieve and not grieve in other people's timing. Because I know a lot of people look at me because I'm able to move forward. They see me so strong, and I'm like, Lord, if they only saw me behind the closed doors every day, because this is an everyday. I deal with this every day. I tell everybody, I deal with it every day. I live with that moment. I got that call, and I deal with the whole process. And if I allow myself to stay there, certainly I would not be in my right mind. But I have to, not allow myself to stay in that place. I have to allow myself time to cry, grieve, and get those emotions out, because I think there is a healing in that. Because once I release those tears and I release those feelings, I'm able to move a little bit further. I can go another month and not feel those emotions come back. So I've learned how to allow myself the space and the time to grieve. I don't care how saved you are, how strong you are. Uh, death, death, and a tragic as such as I faced, it can knock the wind out of you, and it literally knocked the wind out of me. I have to. Everybody tells me there's a book in me that I got to write, including you. But my learning how to deal with grief and loss didn't just happen with my son. It happened with my husband. It began with my husband, a tragedy. After years of being single, and I remarried my husband, and we had two sons. 5 years into our marriage, he was killed by a drunken driver in head-on collision. Here I was, Jamie was 3, and my other son was 5 at that time. I'm a new mother again, new in ministry. My faith at that time, it was, I thought I could speak to the mountain and it had to move, because whatever the word said, my faith was just there. I had so much zeal and so much faith. And then all of a sudden, to have my husband, one minute he was there, the next minute he's gone. And so my faith was challenged tremendously. I was angry at God for a moment. I'm like, God, what have you done? What have you done to me? I jumped out here, I got married, I had 2 children. Now I'm left here to raise them by myself. And so I went through a real struggle with that, learning how to deal with it. And I was a lot younger then, a lot younger then. So, and my faith was not where it is now. And so I really struggled through that process. Thank God for family and friends that helped me through that. But from that situation, I learned how to rebuild my life and how to deal with the losses in my life, because since then I've had a lot of loss. I've experienced a lot of loss and tragedies. And so it's a process, but you must have a relationship with God. That is the only way that you can deal with grief and loss, those times when, those unexplainable times, you got to have a relationship with God. It's only my relationship with Him. And I totally trust Him. I said, God, I don't understand none of this. Things didn't turn out the way I thought they were going to turn out, but I still trust. I have to trust you. I don't have nothing else. That's why I always tell God, I have no other choice but to trust you through, the good times, the bad times, whether I understand it, whether it makes sense. I trust you, God, with my life. Because when I committed my life to the Lord, everybody that knows me, when I got saved, I went all the way. I mean, I went all the way. I remember making a deal with God. I'm like, God, if you give me time to sow my oats, as you can say, let me do some things I want to do, then I'll give you my life completely, 100%. And God did that. He gave me 2 or 3 years where I just sowed some oats. I sowed some wild oats. But then I heard God say one day, okay, I need you it's time to come on in now. And so when I made up my mind to live for God, I mean, I gave up everything. Everybody, I used to I would love makeup and the hair and all that stuff. I gave that all up. I took off all my makeup. I stripped myself of who I was and allowed God to rebuild me back to who He wanted me to be. And people used to say, why you stop wearing your makeup? Why you stop? I said, this is what God is requiring of me. He's asking me to totally surrender everything, and I did. And so my faith in God has just, I don't have anything else. I'm in it all the way. And so I'm like, God, none of this has made sense my whole life. It's a big question mark. Like none of this makes sense, but I trust you because I don't have other choice but to trust you. You never failed me. You brought me through some times I didn't think I would make it through. And you walked me through that. And so I just got to still trust you to see what the end gonna be. How you gonna, what are you, what's next, you know?
Well, Pastor Joanne, he hasn't left you. And I think when you talk about it's a conscious decision every morning that you make, but first of all, you allow yourself time to grieve. Even now, it's been several years, you are open about, you allow yourself time to grieve. You have good days, you have good weeks, good months, and then, something may trigger and you're not in the same space, but you allow yourself that time. And I think it's so important for people to hear, to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
Grief is not something that you go, it's a designated time period and then that's it. That's not the way it is. Likewise, growing a ministry is not, I've done my trial sermon or my initial sermon, I've got my ministry up and going, and then that's it. There's going to be downs and high lows and, turnarounds and all that. It's not grief in the same sense, but it's the same emotional feelings. Because when you think you're going down the right way, you think you've connected to the right people, and then you find out that you haven't, and you're taking steps back, it's still that emotional challenge that we deal with when we're disappointed or we're hurt by individuals or situations that we thought were going to help our ministry. And instead, it may set us back or it just keeps us at the same place that we're at. So I think the fact that you talk about allowing yourself permission and then being very intentional each day. And I thought about the scripture, and you correct me if I say it wrong, but so as a man thinketh, so is he. So that means we have to consciously think about what we want that day to be.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because if we think, oh, this is going to be a day I'm going to cry, I'm just not going to do anything, then I talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. You basically put that out there, and then that's how that day goes.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important in everything that you're doing. And then hearing you talk about your faith had been challenged, but you rebuild your life, and you dealt with loss and tragedy in so many different arenas. It made me sort of think about your role as a mentor. Because I think about these young women or even younger men who may have a desire to enter the ministry, but they're not in a space where it's being received, or no one is helping them to cultivate that. And you walk that walk
Yeah.
because you know really since you were a little girl that you didn't know what you knew, but you knew that you knew something, that you were supposed to be preaching. And you talk about standing before you saw yourself in the robe and the audience and all of that. I clue in on the fact of you have been giving and nurturing your audience, whether it's the trees, whether it was your classmates, your cousins, your friends, whomever, adults that happen to be like, okay, we're going to see what, I don't ever say, Joanne, what's Joanne talking about today? But, Pastor Joanne is talking about today. You have been depositing into people since you were a little girl. And what a unique role to be in. And when you fast forward to how you were birthing two things at the same time in the same month, in the month of December. So, we're closing out the year, getting ready to go into the new year.
Okay.
And so I'm enamored by how God has orchestrated your steps.
Yes.
And given all that you've gone through, you still standing.
Still here.
You still here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You still here.
Yes. Yes.
Still fighting.
Yeah.
Still trying to improve your community. You're from Durham, North Carolina. You're still working to make the community a better place. Regardless of the tragic events that you've experienced, you're still going forward. You're still going forward. And I think about where do you get the wherewithal to do that? Where do you get that strength from to keep pushing?
It's supernatural. It's certainly not in my own strength that I wake up every day and make it through that day. It is the supernatural strength of God that pushes me and carries me and that's when I tell people it's so important to you not only to have God, but to know that God's got you. Because there have been times when I've given up, I've let go. I'm like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And I want to let go, but that's when He just like grabs me. It's like, oh no, you're not. That's quitting is not an option. You can't let go. No, you're not. And I literally heard God say, I'm like, okay, I decided I'm gonna have a tantrum today, and He allows me that time. I'm screaming, I'm hollering, I'm fussing, and a minute away from cussing. I can real. And then I heard God say, okay, time up, wipe your tears. Come on, pull it together. I mean, I literally can hear Him say that. Okay, get up, dry your face, wipe your tears, pull it together, and keep moving forward. And it's just and a peace will come over me like a flood of just a flood over me. I'll get peace, and I'm like, okay, God, I'll move a little further. But so it's just it's a supernatural strength that comes directly from God to keep me pushing forward and moving forward. Because like I said, there been many days I didn't want to get out the bed. I didn't want to see the sunshine. I didn't want to get up. I'm like, God, I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm not talking about last year, a couple of years from now. I'm talking about a few days ago. It's a constant, but like I say, I allow myself that time to be human. God allows me that time to be human. I'm not superhuman. I don't pretend to be. I mean, they got a lot of people, and I've looked at them like, God, they just seem like they just bounce right back, from everything. And why am I still here? But I allow myself to be human. And, despite of my faith and my strength in the Lord and my, trust in God, I have human moments where I'm just human. I deal with those human fears and emotions, and but it's a part of healing, and it brings strength to me when I allow myself to be human and allow myself to feel those emotions. And I think that is so important. And as far as mentoring, I often look as for a period of time, or still even now, when something tragic happens, first person they call is me, and I'm like, God, why do they think, But God has allowed me to experience some things so I can be that comfort, or be that person. And hey, look at me. I know. When you can't always say, and people always say, I know how you feel. No, if you haven't experienced what I've experienced, you can't know how I feel. But there have been times when I had to go to a mother, or I've had to go to a wife and say, I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly where you are, and it's going to be okay. Look at me. I'm still here. I survived it. I survived it. And you're going to get through it. It's not going to be easy. I don't tell anybody, oh, it's going to be, it's going to be better tomorrow, and I don't tell them those crazy things, because I let them know, no, it's going to hurt for a while. But I promise you that God's going to be with you through every pain, every tear. God is going to get you through it. And you'll be able to look back one day, because there was a time I could not talk like that. I couldn't have this conversation. I could not have this conversation for many years. And so I thank God that I've come this far, that I can talk about it. I'm able to talk about it, and have some and laugh about it. There are times when I may start trying to talk about things, and the emotions come out, and so I deal with it as it comes, and I just trust God through the whole process. I'm still processing it and trying to understand it, and just trusting God through it.
Pastor Joe, I just want to say, for those who don't know, your son Jamie was killed. It's an unsolved murder in Durham. And I say that, and we don't have to talk about the details, but I say that because I always believe there's a purpose for everything. And as you've been very transparent, and I appreciate that. Sometimes you're crying, and we all do this. Sometimes we cry, sometimes we laughing, sometimes we can't get up. I can't get out the bed. I just can't today. But there are other individuals who have experienced loss. And I want them to understand that what we're talking about, because I know your story, but I want them to understand that when you talk about loss, you've had several tragic losses. As you mentioned, Jamie's father was killed by a drunk driver. Then you lost Jamie in an unsolved homicide. And Jamie's father really turned your life around.
Yes.
You were going one way, and then you went another way, and you got this bond, and then you, as you said, you were not planning to have another child at that moment. Then you get Jamie, or you get pregnant, when you get the calling, get that burning sensation, and then you're pregnant with Jamie, and then you do your initial sermon, then you get the prophecy, and then you have Jamie, and it's like everything it's good. It's good, moving in the right direction.
Right.
So when that began to shift, with the loss of his father, and then, of course, drawing even closer to your children, because they would have been a sense of normalcy for you. And then, of course, seeing Jamie begin to show what had been prophesied all those years, to see that come to pass, and then to work hand in hand in your ministry together. And then for his life to be changed so suddenly, and then for your life to change suddenly. My question to you is, my question is twofold. What message do you think your it's not ex-husband, but your husband, Jamie's father, if he were to give you a message today, because that's been a long time ago now, what message do you think that he would have for you?
Wow. Probably just keep pushing forward and keep trusting God. He was a great man of God. He was that's a whole nother story to talk about him, because he was a one of a kind. Anybody that knew him, he was a musician. Excuse me, he was a musician, loved music, and music was his life. And so, and his children, Jamie and my other son Sean, they were his life, and he had a short life. His life was cut short too, tragically, but he was all about fulfilling our purpose and just being everything that, doing, living life to the fullest. So I know that he would want me to continue on trusting God as I have trusted God, and just keep, living my life to the fullest, and stop not trying to figure it out. Stop, just don't try to figure it out. Just trust God through it. Just, and I know that's what he would say. You can do it. You got this. You got this. Because that was where he taught. You got it. You got it. You can do this. And so I know he would tell me, just keep doing what you've been doing. You're doing great. Yeah, he would definitely tell me, just you got this. That would, you can do this. Yeah.
And what do you think Jamie would say to you? What do you think Jamie would say to you at this point? Because you've been dealing with his untimely death, and you've been making tracks.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that he would say to you about what you've been able to accomplish without him being here?
I can, a lot of times I walk into church and I say, oh, I know James is just beaming, because, to see the ministry now, that was his vision. Because I always say that Jamie gave, legs to my vision. I would say what I wanted, and he made it happen. And so I know where we are right now is where he envisioned the ministry being, even down to the day that he was taken from me. We had just purchased carpet for the church, some new carpet, and he had gone that day and made the purchase, made the payment, and he left me a voicemail. Okay, it's done. He was giving me instruction. It's done. The carpet is ordered. It'll be here on this date. And we was trying to make some renovations, doing some changes to the church, and he was telling me, it was like he knew that was his last conversation, because he was giving me instructions on, don't wait, tell them don't wait till the carpet comes. They can go ahead and be doing this right before the carpet comes, and do this. He was still giving me instructions. So I know if he's looking down, and I know he's pleased with what we have accomplished, what we've done so far since his death, because he loved that ministry. He loved the ministry. He loved the church, and Jamie was just he had great faith. I tell you, he just blew my mind with faith. Even the building that we're in now, Jamie saw that building when we first started ministry, and he was like, that's where we're supposed to be. But the landlord did not want a church in that building. So they refused to rent the building to us, because we were going to be a church. So for 2 years, we were in another location. But that building, the whole 2 years, that building sat empty. Nobody occupied that building. So finally, Jamie went back. It was like, when we decided we were ready to move somewhere, Jamie was like, I'm going back. That's our building. I know that's our building. He went back and talked to the landlord again. And, it was not easy. We had to wrestle it out of his hand. But he finally said, yeah, okay, I'll let the church be there. And so he saw the vision. And when the building that we're in, it was just pretty much like a warehouse. It was just a big open building. Jamie went in and had the vision. He drew the floor plan for that building. He laid it out, drew it out, and the building that you see now, that was his vision, the idea of how that church would be laid out. He had already gotten the name for the church when he was in high school. God had given him the name Divine Grace in high school, and so when it came time to, was trying to come up with a name for the ministry, he's like, Mom, the Lord gave me a name for the church years ago. And so when he said Divine Grace Ministries, it clicked. I knew. I'm like, that's it, But God had given him the vision for this ministry when he was in high school. He already had a vision for the future. He already had drawn out the church for the future. I mean, he was a real visionary, real man of faith. Jamie was just like one, if whatever he, decided that, he wanted, we just, we went after it. Like when we first started the ministry, we had 2 buildings. We had a youth center. He wanted a youth center. I don't know how we did it now. Look back on it, we were just a handful of people, but he was like, Mom, we need this building. We need this building for our youth. We had a youth center fully equipped, because of Jamie's his vision. He saw something he wanted, and he just went after it. I don't know, So that's why it was so devastating to me when I lost him. I'm like, Lord, where do I go from here? This child he made the vision come to pass. But I'm still just trusting God that He's got a plan, a purpose, and it's all going to make sense one day. If not in this life, I'll understand it in the by and by, like they say.
Yes.
I've stopped trying to figure it out, and because God's ways are so higher than ours, we can't ever understand His ways, and He sees the end from the beginning. So I have to trust God. I don't see this. I don't know where you're going with all this, but I'm just trusting you through the process.
Well, Pastor Joanne, I think that Jamie has sent a message to us.
All right.
Because I didn't know all of this. I know bits and pieces,
Mm-hmm.
but what I get from that, and what I want the audience to take the takeaway is, one, wait on God.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, God's ways are not our ways.
Mm-hmm.
And He gives us bits and pieces of the plan our entire life. We have to be tuned in to Him to understand what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and write it down if you can't remember, because so many things He gives us, we just can't remember it all. Write it down, get you a journal, whatever, composition book, whatever you want to call it, write it down. And the thing that I've learned, put the date there, because you won't remember when you got it. Put the date there, because that's what's going to flow you when you look back and say, oh, I've known this for 15 years. Oh, but now I'm finally using it.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically what you're saying with us, that for me, what I get is that God used Jamie really to show man how He works.
Mm-hmm.
Because He was giving Jamie all these nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie was an incubator.
Mm-hmm.
He understood it in a way that I guess the majority of us don't. And so when he would get a nugget, he held on to it. Mm-hmm. Then when it was time to use it, he just like pull it out. He like, well, where did you get that from? Oh, I've known this a long time. But it wasn't a reason to share it with you. So it wasn't a reason to tell you back, because you wouldn't have understood. You wouldn't have understood it. He pulled it out. Knowing that your building was your building, and then not letting that go.
Right.
He let it go. Yeah. He kept working on it. And you see how God didn't let anybody go in the building.
Absolutely.
It was your building. And you still had to go back, and the man still didn't want to give it to you, but you finally got your building. And when you talk about him having the plan, the blueprints in his head, it was just an open space. And he drew out the sanctuary, your office, and where the back and the kitchen at. He drew all of that out.
Yes.
That's God.
That's God.
God had already given it to him. And I think I'm going to end with this last message that he gave us, which was about the carpet. Mm-hmm. I ordered the carpet. They're going to deliver it this day. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that you can't keep working. Wow. You work on this now. Wow. When they come to deliver the carpet, then you let them put the carpet in. But don't let the carpet delivery prevent you from working on the things that you can work on now. So what am I saying, folks? What I'm saying is, do what you can do today. Mm. The other things are coming. Mm. And as long as you're doing your part, when your carpet delivery is ready, it's going to show up. They say he'll show up and he'll show out. It will come right on time. And it'll be like, well, dang, I just didn't see it coming like that. We never do in the flesh. That's awesome. We don't. Mm-hmm. Jamie has helped us to understand that. He told you what to keep working on. I didn't order the carpet. It's coming. Y'all keep doing this other stuff. And that's what we're supposed to do. But he made it so plain. Yes. So Pastor Joanne, thank you for sharing with us about Jamie. Thank you for sharing how you got into the ministry, and how you didn't have a mentor, because there may be some individuals, as I said before, young men or young women who are trying to, it may not even be a true preaching ministry. Right. It may be a ministry, but they don't have anybody who can help them to see their way through it. Mm-hmm. And you are that type of person, because just as Jamie is a visionary, you understand, you'll think about this when we get off. You understand how to work with visionaries. A lot of people are kind of gun shy when it comes to visionaries, because they're so far out. Mm-hmm. And you're not a far out person, you may feel some kind of way. Mm-hmm. I ain't gonna characterize what that feeling is, but you feel feel some kind of way.
Right.
And therefore you don't help that person when you really could have helped that person, not realizing when you help God's person, it helps you.
Mm-hmm.
Because what does he say? When I was hungry, you fed me not. And it goes on. It's like, but when did I do this, Lord? When you did it to the least of my little ones.
Absolutely.
But that means you got to be secure in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we don't know how he'll come, but as your husband would say, keep going. You're doing a good job. As Jamie would say, the carpet is coming.
Wow.
And the carpet's coming. So you just keep doing the things that you're doing. And one day you're going to look up and they're going to be bringing in new carpet and you're going to say, it fits the area just fine. I just didn't know it was coming though.
All right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I like that word.
Yes,
Jamie's favorite word to me was push. Push. Sometimes I would be struggling to move around. I used to have before I had my total hip replacements, I was struggling to move, and Jamie would always get in my back, and he'd take his hand and he'd say, "Push, mama, push, push." I'd be trying to get out the car, he'd get in my back, and he'd say, "Push, push." So that's my inspiration. I can hear Jamie always when I get in a place where I feel like I'm getting stuck. I feel him in my back saying, "Push, mama, push, push." He'd actually get in my back and he would push me out the car. I'd be like, "Jamie, would you stop?" But he's still pushing me. He's still pushing.
Well, I want you to keep pushing. You keep pushing because your carpet is on the way.
I love it.
And we know that it's coming because you've seen it come in the natural. So that's the thing I want you to hold on to. You've seen it come in the natural. But just think about what it's going to be like when it comes in the supernatural.
Wow. Awesome.
Well, thank you, Pastor Joanne, for joining me in my kitchen for Kitchen Talk. This has been a wonderful, wonderful time spent with you. I look forward to hearing later how you push through and what that carpet is that's coming, because I believe that it is going to come.
Amen.
Now, Pastor Joanne, if folks want to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you? Would it be Facebook?
Well, they can connect with me on Facebook, Joanne Daniels on Facebook, and the ministry is Divine Grace Worship Center. I also have started a business, small business. I haven't gotten it all the way up, but it's Classy Ladies Bling and Things, THINGZ. And I hope to be posting some pictures of my designer inspired bags and jewelry and clothing and stuff that I'm going to be offering. And so, I don't have the Instagram. I got to learn. I got to get all up to date with all this new stuff, Instagram and all. I still just got Facebook, but I'm going to one day probably get an Instagram, but they can reach out to me through Facebook or Messenger, inbox me if you need to get in touch with me. Certainly, I'm open and here for however I can help, whatever I can do, inspire somebody.
Well, thank you. You've heard her, guys. You can reach Pastor Joanne Daniels on Facebook. You can messenger her there. And she's got this business coming out, Classy Ladies Bling Things. And I didn't know anything about it because I didn't. So I can't even give you no insight on that yet. But stay tuned. Reach out to her. You're going to find that she's a wonderful, wonderful person to know. And she's very generous in everything that she does. So Pastor Joanne, until next time, this has been Kitchen Talk. I can't wait to find out later what you pushed your way into and what your plan is. Okay.
Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I've enjoyed it.
But thank you also.
All right. God bless you.
God bless you.
So now if you want me to transform your recipe, you know what you have to do. You've got to send me an email to transformwithtas@gmail.com. Put recipe in the subject line. Make sure you include your first and last name and of course the recipe. And you never know when your recipe may be featured on Transform with TAS, where we are feeding our bodies healthy foods that are good foods, but kind of bad, healthy, good, bad foods. And we are feeding our soul Well, I tell you, I have kept my plate here because once we stop rolling, I am going to finish this. I actually love this dish. I don't even know what I'm going to call it, but it's a good dish. It's filling. I love it, and I hope that you will try it. The interview went great. What can I say about this person? You know, they are taking control of their life, and they're showing us how we can take control of ours. And that's what this is all about, how we can transform ourselves into a better version of ourselves. So until next time, make sure you take care of you and take care of others. But you gotta take care of you first. Bye now.